welcome to the 12th Skoll World Forum.
These are probably the steepest drops in mortality ever recorded anywhere, any place in human history.
As we look at this world that is full of both peril and unprecedented opportunity, what are those beliefs that make us most beautiful, that allow us to bring our best selves into the future?
I don't think that any one of us has a life that is not buttressed by beliefs, even when we do not necessarily acknowledge them.
It is the positive vision of that's where we're aiming for. You know, that's the world that we're aiming for.
We're in this year of 2015. Probably the most significant year for climate and development that I can remember.
These children are not giving up. Who am I to give up?
The women and men we honor tonight have stepped forward to stand for an end to inequality and to overexploitation of the Earth's resources.
I'd like to celebrate and share this award with the many communities that manage commons across the world.
We have a hope of putting conservation in the hands of those with the greatest interest in its success.
An informed public will not allow the water they drink and the air they breathe to suffer from this continuous damage.
I am Safina Hussain, and I educate girls.
We occupy Oxford.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Stephan Chambers.
Hello again, and welcome to what I was going to call the happiest room in Oxford, until I heard Jack Sims talk this morning. And those of you who weren't there, that's a toilet joke. I warned you that there'd be laughter and crying and dancing this week. And there were indeed all of those things. I didn't warn you that there'd be anger, and there'd be inspiration, and there'd be modesty, and strong-minded, robust, combative, positive disagreement, and grace, and ambition. Thank you for bringing those things here this week. And daughters. There were lots of daughters this week. And I salute all of them, even, or perhaps especially, those I live with. I saw us realize some things this week. I saw us realize that stories are everywhere and always necessary. They're not the means by which we project our mission. They are our mission. They are indissoluble from our purpose. I saw that religion isn't the engine of divisiveness, but poverty and injustice are. I saw that you need to take care of yourselves as well as of your mission, or your mission suffers. I saw that our measurements need recalibrating. I saw that the price of doing too little is simply too high. I learnt that if you say, "I could go on," usually they let you. So I will. Our task is to reform capitalism. Maybe we're in the protest movement. Who am I to give up? They know the lay of the land. Doing a lot is not enough. We are making a new social contract. If you make people laugh, they'll listen. If you said these things this week, thank you. If you heard these things this week, I hope I've represented them correctly. If you missed these things this week, don't worry, it's all online. If you wrote on the piano, thank you for that too. That will be a permanent installation at the Said Business School. And to whoever wrote, "Please do not write on this piano," either my apologies or my gratitude. Each year, I think we've reached peak Skoll. Each year, I think we can't get any more motivated, rebalanced, rejuvenated, moved, angry, inspired. And each year, I'm wrong. You astound me. You astound me with your creativity, and I am humbled by it. You astound me with your inventiveness, and you astound me with your generosity. Thank you. So we're at that point in the week where we're very slightly delirious with inspiration and exhaustion. So I prescribe some more laughter. But first, a very short film introducing the genius that is Bassem Youssef. If you're exhausted, you won't be soon. Enjoy.
By the time the revolution was ending on the squares and streets of Cairo, another revolution was starting in the most unlikely location, in the laundry room of the apartment of a young cardiac surgeon. With one desk, one camera, trying to imitate a show he was addicted to for many years. Yes, this young doctor thought that just by commenting on videos, using fast editing, sound effects, over-the-shoulder photos, and even on-location reports, that he could make a political satire show. The show, which was exclusively designed for YouTube, debuted on YouTube on March 8, 2011, as the first Egyptian independent production on the internet.
In a country where internet penetration was less than 20% and a YouTube video making 50,000 views was considered viral, we began the B+ show. And in less than 2 months, and with only 7 videos, our channel made 5 million views. A figure unprecedented in Egypt. And instead of just staying as an internet phenomenon, we made the next big leap.
My guest tonight, he is a heart surgeon who also hosts a satirical news program in Egypt called Al Barnamij.
We decided to take it to the next level and aimed at producing Egypt's first ever live show with real live audience. We eventually did it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jon Stewart!
After just the second episode, we became the most watched program in the Arab world, with an estimated viewership of 30 million people per episode. And that is just in Egypt. Yes, we go on every Friday night to take a few punches at the ruling powers and the right wing in quite an unstable political environment.
Every week, an estimated 30 million people tune in. Egyptians have never seen anything like this before. Bassem saved his best material for former President Mohamed Morsi. Look at what Morsi wore when he received an honorary doctorate in Pakistan. Now look at how Bassem portrayed it on the air. Bassem was accused of damaging Egypt-Pakistan relations. Egyptians across the country laughed themselves silly, but Morsi was not amused by the hat joke. A warrant was issued for Bassem's arrest. He was formally accused of insulting the president and insulting Islam.
Due to his global reach through YouTube, he was able to influence perceptions worldwide. On the 30th of June, people took to the streets to overthrow the Muslim Brotherhood's regime, and Bassem was now faced with a new reality that he should continue with his message of satire regardless of the circumstances. And after one episode of the program, the show was taken off the air by the broadcasting channel. Former friends became today's enemies.
Bassem found another network that was willing to take the risk.
What do you think is going to happen this time? Are you confident that it's going to be on the air?
Show of hands that we are going to continue without stopping. Show of hands, we are going to be pulled off air very soon. Woo!
The show only lasted 11 episodes in its last season. And even in its final stretch, the show stayed true to its values. It remained critical of authority and its biased media, no matter how difficult this became. The lawsuits kept pouring in, and the show was even jammed twice during airing. Eventually, insurmountable pressures on the channel and the team forced the show to be finally banned.
واحنا بنعتبر ان وقف البرنامج في حد ذاته رسالة أقوى وأوضح وأعلى بكتير جدا من استمراره ومن أي حاجة كانت هتقفل البرنامج. من الآخر الرسالة وصلت.
It seems that satire was too much for some people to handle. It seems that satire is not an easy task after all.
My name is Bassem Youssef, and I'm your host for tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Bassem Youssef.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for the Skoll Foundation for bringing us all here. If it was just up for the UK visa system, half of the theater would have been very empty. Thank you so much. And thanks Skoll Foundation for bringing me here and sharing my story with you. It started 4 years ago. The promise of a new spring, a new beginning, and a new hope. We have lived for decades under the reign of people telling us how to think and how to behave. We came after generations that never answered back and never questioned the status quo. When the Arab Spring started, we thought that this is the time that we will finally break away from the same brainwashing establishment that controlled us for a very long time. When we took to the streets, it was obvious what was going on. It was a revolution, plain and simple. But when you go home and switch on the television, it was no revolution. It was a conspiracy, like everything else in our region. It was a plot constructed by the CIA, Mossad, Hamas, Hezbollah, and maybe even the village people. We had so much lying and deception going on in our media that if we would choose one word to describe what was going on, it would be maybe Fox News. Now imagine that everywhere. The old old establishment was not ready to let go, but we had the chance to get our voice out there. For the first time in many years, humor and satire was used not as a tool to distract people from their problems, but as a weapon to disrupt the taboos that we were never allowed to talk about. We used satire to face political, social, religious, and sexual taboos. Not everyone liked us. Actually, a lot of people hated us because we were controversial, because we didn't accept the status quo. But everybody watched us, and that helped bump up our ratings, so thank you haters everywhere. And this is how powerful humor is. You can't look away and you cannot ignore it. It would have been so convenient for us to avoid the controversy, to take the easy way out, to play along, to compromise, to swim along the current. But only dead fish swim with the current. They tried alienating people against us. They used the best known weapon known to humans, fear. Fear drives masses. Fear makes it easier to control the people. Fear is a magic solution that helps galvanize and polarize the public. Hate, xenophobia, and prejudice are easily accepted and even welcomed in a fertile ground that is being nourished by fear. Humor is the only antidote against fear. If you are laughing, you can't be afraid anymore. That is why we were targeted, persecuted, had our signal jammed, got banned a couple of times, until we were eventually stopped from the thing that we love. I come from a region where obliterating an opposing voice is just a phone call away. It's true. Hello, yes, we don't like the jokes anymore. Shut him down or you'll be shut down. Ta-ta, that's it. That's simple. We made history, we made a difference, but we couldn't continue because it was just too dangerous. Who knew that cracking a joke can cause us so much trouble? But I'm not standing here today to tell you a nice story from the past. I'm here to talk to you about the future. Yes, the channels in my region are too scared to carry my show and my opinions, but that is not the end, it is the beginning. In a region with more than 70% of the population that is under the age of 40, the TV industry as we know it is dying. It is an industry controlled and run by the same people with stagnant minds that kept the old establishment alive. We are the children of the internet. TV for people like us is like an old dinosaur that is past the time of its extinction. That is why we are building now a new platform, totally online, that speaks to those young people, the people who have been betrayed by the establishment. This platform will replicate my experience going from an unknown on the internet to becoming the biggest show in the Middle East. We want to give the new generation what we thought we had 4 years ago, but we lost. We want to give them hope. Thank you. In a few years from now, we will not be controlled by the same people who killed the Arab Spring. Taking us out will not be a phone call away anymore. This platform aims to harness the incredible talents in the Middle East. We will incubate those talents and make them realize their potential. Before this decade is over, we will have a totally independent media that the rules of the old establishment don't apply to. This is not some wishful thinking. Our company is the biggest YouTube partner in the Middle East. We have the first and only successful conversion from internet to TV. We know what we're talking about, and we can tell you that this is happening. I know that a quick look at our region right now doesn't really inspire a great deal of hope. The Arab Spring might appear to be defeated. But there is another spring blossoming in the hearts and minds of young people and is slowly flourishing everywhere. There is a revolution of young minds questioning everything, every day, screaming, we are not going to be taken for granted anymore. All they need is a space and a path to express themselves. The theme of this summit is belief. We do have this belief. We believe that we will make a change. We believe that we will create our destiny because we have found our voice, and this time we will not give it up. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Bassem. Who said that humor wasn't a deeply serious thing? Ken Brecher is my friend. And those of you lucky enough to have had emails from Ken will know that his email signature says, "Believe in the friendship of Ken Brecher." It really does. It really does say at the foot of his emails, "Believe in the friendship of Ken Brecher." And guess what? I believe in the friendship of Ken Brecher. Ladies and gentlemen, the host of our next session, please welcome Ken Brecher.
Thank you, Stephan. Hello. There have been so many examples on this stage. Last night was incredible, of people with tremendous accomplishments in the field of social entrepreneurship, people with extraordinary virtues. I thought at one moment last night I was at a rock concert because we were on our feet so many times and it felt extraordinary. But I think this afternoon we should be honest with each other. And when we're not in Oxford, it's different. We're a different kind of person. Social entrepreneurs are one thing when they're part of the Skoll Forum, and thank goodness for that. But there's something else when you get home. And my wife and I were recently in a pub where there happened to be written on the wall, no attribution, but what was, I guess, a description of the publican, the person who ran the pub. And I wrote it down and realized afterward that it was probably the best description of a social entrepreneur I'd ever seen. Here's what it said. It said, now when I say publican, substitute social entrepreneur, and if I say him, substitute him or her, of course. A publican must be a democrat, an autocrat, an acrobat, a doormat. He must be able to entertain prime ministers, pickpockets, pirates, philanthropists, and ponces. He has to settle arguments and fights. He must be a qualified boxer, wrestler, weightlifter, sprinter, and peacemaker. To be successful, he must keep the bars full, the house full, the tanks full, the storeroom full, and not get himself full. It is said that the publican home wrecks, takes weekly wage checks, in other words, saturates, confiscates, deteriorates, and when he has time, propagates. To sum up, he must be outside, inside, offside, glorified, sanctified, crucified, cross-eyed, and paralyzed. Now, when Sally was up here last night, she talked about the Magna Carta and King John, and it is still a monarchy, as we know. It's still a monarchy here in England, and there was a queen about 100 years ago or so, it was actually in the 1870s, and Queen Victoria had this to say about artists. She gathered her children together and she said, "I would venture to warn you against too great intimacy with artists, as they are very seductive and more than a little dangerous." We're going to see that's true this afternoon. Now, in preparation for this, I spoke with Peter Sellers, the great activist, artist, theater director, and opera director, and I reached him, and he's been working in the Congo for many years, as well as in other parts of the world. And I asked Peter, what do activist artists and social entrepreneurs have in common? And he said that it was quite a moment. I remember we were on a crackling line on a phone, and he said, politicians and government employees look at the world and see what's there. But artists and social entrepreneurs look at the world and see what's not there. They see what's missing. Both social entrepreneurs and artists are allergic to the Western artist who flies in to create something and then leaves. Artists understand that there is no quick fix, that what you have on your side is courage and unselfish action, and that you have to go deep, and that what you're actually doing is reweaving the social fabric. For me personally, artists are the best source I know for new ways to imagine things. We honor among us today, in this audience and on this stage, artists, social entrepreneurs and artists who have the courage to say something, to show something, to photograph something, to sing something that others might not have been able or willing to imagine, to describe, to confront, to use as a change agent, an inspiration the artist and the audience recognize as authentic, moving, and when necessary, courageous. Artists and social entrepreneurs both have to live, this is the truth, with their failures every day. And they know that in the dark hours of the night, the only real metric for them is endurance. Both social entrepreneurs and the artist must be willing to survive the reversal of their fondest hopes. The artists I'm going to be introducing, and you'll see this afternoon, have survived very well. We've all seen the photographs of Susan Meiselas. You'll recognize them immediately. From her work in Nicaragua to El Salvador to Kurdistan. When Susan is on the scene, the camera is an instrument that when Susan is on the scene, I want to get this right because it is absolutely true, the camera is an instrument that teaches us to see without a camera. She is a MacArthur Fellow, just last week was chosen as a 2015 Guggenheim Fellow, and she's also the founding president of the Magnum Foundation, a very important foundation for activist artists. We're also going to hear from Monica Yunus and Camille Zamora. They founded Sing for Hope. They could not be more talented or more lovely. And in my dark hours of the night, I only have to listen to their voices to find that need and wish to continue. They're extraordinary people. Santos, you heard him, Feliciano dos Santos. You heard him in the opening plenary. There are very few rock stars, and he is a rock star, that sing about hygiene and sanitation. And I love the names of his band's tours, Masukosh's band. They've done the Make Poverty History Tour, and they've done the Wash Your Hands Tour. They work from, as you know, Mozambique, where the life expectancy is 40 years, and it is one of the poorest countries in the world. The organization that Santos founded, ESTAMOS, is a nonprofit that has done extraordinary work, and he was awarded, and I'm so excited about this, he was awarded the Goldman Environmental Prize for this work. He's going to be interviewed by Ned Breslin, who many of you know, a great social entrepreneur, the CEO of Water for People, who for many years with his wife, Lindsay, worked in, and continues to work in Africa, but worked directly with Santos. And the questions they're going to talk about, they're very few, but they're very apposite, because they're the questions that I think can only be discussed by two very close friends. But just before the artists, and next, we have the great pleasure of hearing Darren Walker. Darren is the president of the Ford Foundation, the second largest philanthropy in the United States. The foundation operates in Asia, Africa, the Middle East, Central and South America. And Darren's personal work, his personal interests, have been about social justice and human rights and urban development and free expression. His career in the social sector followed a decade in international law and finance. Before being named president in 2013, Darren served as the foundation's vice president, and his title is my favorite title of any philanthropic organization. He was the vice president for education, creativity, and free expression. And that just says it, that says Darren. He covered media and journalism, arts and culture, sexuality and reproductive health, and the rights for reproductive health, and educational access with opportunity and a focus on religion. He is an extraordinary person, and he exemplifies what many of you in this room will recognize as the truth of the social entrepreneur. Darren knows that without compassion, there is no joy, and without joy, there's no compassion. And I recently read, it was a little passage in D.H. Lawrence, where he was describing a man that he admired, and he described it in such an interesting way, and I thought, this reminds me of Darren. Lawrence said, he was a man who had the confidence of his tenderness. Darren Walker.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, and thank you, Ken, for that very kind introduction. And to Jeff Skoll, congratulations to you. Your inimitable vision, your courage, your humility, and your audacity has made this all possible. And to my friend Sally, you are indefatigable. it is your ability to think in ways in which most of us in philanthropy don't even have the capacity that makes you so respected, one of the most admired CEOs in all of philanthropy, and you have earned that moniker. So I am truly honored to be here with this remarkable group of artists, and I am thrilled to look out into this audience and see all of you hailing from near and far for your work in the art of social entrepreneurship and social innovation. I have the honor of participating in this extraordinary session, and so I want to give a little bit of a personal perspective. For as long as I can remember, the arts have imbued energy and meaning into my life. As a child in a small Texas town of Ames, Texas, population 1,400, I pored over the glossy pages of art magazines that my grandmother, who was a maid, brought me from the homes of the wealthy families for whom she worked. Page after page, hour after hour, my mind visited worlds from which I otherwise would have been excluded. In many ways, because of the arts, my economic situation never limited my expectations for myself. The arts broadened my horizons and my very sense of what was possible in the world. As an 18-year-old at the University of Texas in Austin, I first saw the Dance Theater of Harlem, and everything clicked. My life was changed forever. As a young professional in New York in the 80s, I fell in love with the city's museums and galleries and treasured institutions, the likes of which a small-town boy from Texas had never experienced before. I found a passion for the performing arts, Alvin Ailey and the others, and for theater, documentary film, and the writers of the Harlem Renaissance, most notably James Baldwin. It was Baldwin who, a Ford Foundation grantee, I'm proud to say, who wrote, quote, "The artist cannot and must not take anything for granted, but must drive to the heart of every answer and expose the question the answer hides." To me, this made sense because I was insatiably curious about the world, and in the arts, I found so many answers. And this was a time, too, in the 1980s when I fell in love with an art dealer, and he introduced me to an entirely new world of artists and curators and collectors and critics. I say all of this to say I am a fervent believer in the transformational, uplifting power of artistic expression. I am certain, I am absolutely certain that I would not be standing before you today as president of the Ford Foundation if not for my exposure to the arts. And in turn, during my time in philanthropy, I have advocated passionately for the arts. I have sought new ways to support creative visionaries and to lift the voices of artists around the world who need to be heard. And yet, given the importance of the arts in my life and in the world, I have noticed a troubling trend during these last few years. We all know about the repressive regimes that stifle creativity and persecute artists who rouse public sentiment for the sake of public good. But even where artists do enjoy freedom of expression, artists and art institutions are forced to justify their contributions in economic terms alone. Their relevance and existence is defined by studies and statistics. And all of this reflects a larger trend. Our culture has bought into the idea that if something can't be measured, then somehow it doesn't matter. No doubt it is not easy to quantify the impact of a musician, a dancer, a painter, or a filmmaker. But in my eyes, this is no excuse for only supporting those things that deliver immediately quantifiable returns. And of course, this problem is not limited to arts and artists. It reveals and reinforces a societal illness, a perversion, a distortion, which I'm sure sounds familiar to many of you in this room. Too often, we prioritize short-term gain over long-term good. This kind of short-termism has infected so many dimensions of our lives: in education, in healthcare, in development, in business, and in government. It has disrupted the way we make decisions today. I'll give an example of something I know a little bit about. A group of foundations sought to help the city of Detroit, Michigan, navigate its unprecedented bankruptcy, to navigate that bankruptcy without losing its soul, or losing the Detroit Institute of Arts, whose collection was owned by the city. And at the Ford Foundation, we watched as billionaires circled above a bankrupt city, waiting to strip down and sell the museum itself and its masterpieces. Now, this may have made sense in the short term, monetizing the assets of a debtor. But in the long term, this was simply unthinkable. These buyers weren't interested in Detroit. They weren't interested or invested in the citizens of this city. The grand bargain that emerged, which I'm proud that the Ford Foundation was a part of, preserved the pensions of hard-working city retirees and saved a cultural institution that will be treasured for generations to come. It's precisely this focus on the future, on the next decade, on the next century that animates the Skoll World Forum. And the good news is we still have time to change this pervasive attitude. We can prioritize long-term investments in community and in culture and the arts. The arts are an indispensable ingredient to social progress. Apart from generating economic value, of course, the arts and culture create economies of empathy. And because of that, we have seen them play an integral part in building a wide range of social movements, from the civil rights movement to the Arab Spring. Because artists challenge the status quo, and they give voice to those who are often left out and left behind. Artists imagine a better world and inspire us to join them in building it. They move us to hope, joy, compassion, resolve, and ultimately action. And because our work at the Foundation is rooted in supporting social justice movements, I'm proud that the Ford Foundation has initiated a new program this year exploring how the arts and creativity can intersect with and interact with and ultimately inspire all of our work for social change and social justice. The first step in this process is that we've invited a number of cultural visionaries to join us as visiting artists to prompt our own thinking. Their work will challenge us to imagine new ways the arts can help solve social problems. These are all complex issues, but we have seen from time and time again how the arts play a role in stirring our passions and awakening our creativity. The role of arts and culture isn't an add-on for those of us at the Ford Foundation. Ultimately, this is about cultural innovation in service of action. A half-century ago, an American president, John Kennedy, eloquently pointed out, I quote, "There is a connection hard to explain logically, but easy to feel, between achievement in public life and progress in the arts, end quote. And there is also a connection, I believe, between artists and social change. From my vantage point, there are similarities between all of you social entrepreneurs and artists. After all, each of you is grappling with serious, difficult problems and approaching them in new, creative ways. The work that you do and the work that artists do is hard. It's a struggle. It's long, and often it's thankless. But it is important. It is essential that you persevere. I agree with what President Kennedy said, but I believe the missing ingredient is you. It's each of you emotionally communicating, creatively educating, and passionately motivating communities where you live and you work to make the world a better place. That is all of our charge. Thank you. I greatly appreciate this opportunity.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the president of the Magnum Foundation, Susan Meiselas.
I keep asking, what can photographs do? I wanted to start by looking back at some images from my memory bank, those that moved me to become a documentary photographer. First, this picture of the migrant mother, taken by Dorothea Lange during the Great Depression. Through her, we feel the weight of an unknown future. It's the particular way she looks away that draws us in. Or this photograph by Elliot Erwitt, without which we might not remember the extreme segregation in the American South or see the everyday silence of racism at work. Photographs like this fueled the civil rights movement 50 years ago, and yet ongoing. When Americans at home saw this image, they couldn't believe that the American military could be so inhumane. But when Vietnamese photographer Nick Ut took this picture of the Napalm Girl, he had no idea that that single image would contribute so much to stopping the war in Vietnam nearly 40 years ago. Stuart Franklin's image of a single man standing before the tanks in Tiananmen Square in 1989 was so potent that it is still censored in China today. Of course, we remember these images. They're powerful, they were timely, and are now timeless. They're iconic. Photographs call up a time, a place, a context, and compress moments of our collective history into a single frame. When I made this photograph, known now as the Molotov Man in Nicaragua, the protagonists of history were dreaming revolution. The Somoza dictatorship was overthrown the next day, 35 years ago. But as photographers, we don't actually go out to take iconic images. In 1980, I made this image of the Mano Blanca in El Salvador. It registers the white hand left by the death squads on the door of a campesino leader who had just been killed. That signature spread more fear than the killing itself. The photograph continues to have an ongoing life and act as testimony. Staying in Central America for more than a decade, I wanted to immerse and capture the intimate, to connect a distant audience, as well as impact the lives within the frame. It takes time to build in-depth relationships and trust across a cultural divide. For an invested photographer, this is our patient capital. Today, I wonder if this couple might make this image of themselves. Photographers stand for and stand with those who cannot always speak for themselves. Two boys with their thumbs tied together, shot and dumped on a street corner. Photographs perform a claim, though it often takes decades to hold anyone accountable for the abuses they document. The interrogation of bus passengers, a daily event at a military checkpoint on the main highway. I, like other photographers, am driven by a necessity to bear witness. Without knowing what I will find, where the commitment will lead, how it might change me, or how history will unfold. Only when 180,000 Kurds fled northern Iraq into Turkey did we hear about the genocide of Saddam Hussein's Anfal campaign. 4,000 Kurdish villages were systematically destroyed. I crossed the border of Iran and went into Kurdistan to document what the refugees had left behind. This is one of the remaining homes I saw in 1991. A photograph can reveal powerful evidence, such as this scar from a bullet in the back of Timur, the only eyewitness to survive a village massacre when he was 12 years old. 18 years later, my photographs in Timur testified in the trial that indicted Saddam Hussein. A complex visual narrative contained in a frame suspends and freezes a fleeting story. The one static element here is a sculpture. Our world collapsed around it. When I made this picture in Liberty Plaza on September 11th, 2001, Americans could not understand what had happened. No one knew it would also be the most photographed day in history and shape us all for decades to come. In the wake of 9/11, photography was propelled into a digital age that would launch the democracy of a medium with more cameras, phones, and eyes than we could ever imagine. That shift would also unleash the participation of millions of disparate global voices and create a perpetual viral exchange. We are now overstimulated and overwhelmed with multi-source content. We are linked, but we live in distinctly separate worlds, with algorithms dictating what we see. We are at risk of greater fragmentation, with images further decontextualized. In this oversaturated digital world, what can photographs do now? This is the environment we are all navigating today. Do you remember this picture of the Rana Plaza collapse, factory collapse in Dhaka, nearly 2 years ago? 2 workers embraced just at the moment of their death. It was made by Taslima Akhter, a young photographer from Bangladesh. It was the most viewed image across time.com. It sparked international outrage. But how many of us in the global community ask, what's happening now? Long after that photograph was on our front page and circulated online, Taslima is still there, documenting the lives of workers, advocating for labor protections and systemic change. Where does the work of the photographer end and the role of citizens begin? Taslima and other emerging photographers we support believe in using different visual strategies to frame and create frameworks to expose and engage. This is the desk in an interrogation room in Libya. It's a quiet image. At first glance, you might think it banal. But Edmund Clark is documenting the only visible evidence of an invisible war on terror, compelling us to question what else we don't see and should know about. Peter de Campo looks at the often painful truth of well-intentioned foreign aid and its unexpected consequences. Here he focuses on concrete slabs intended to be the base for latrines left unused in northern Ghana. His pictures do not illustrate, they interrogate. To counter the Palestinian stereotype, Tanya Hajoka follows Hayat and Nabila, who do yoga on the outskirts of Bethlehem. She believes her images can cut through the flood of pictures of destruction and conflict to portray the positive, their perseverance under occupation. #Disturb is a growing circle of photographers who mobilize. They take to the streets and paste their images on walls. They return to a physical encounter, not fully trusting viral dispersion alone. They call upon the public to respond and act upon the issues they care passionately about. How can technology intensify our focus to feel and impact the world beyond ourselves? The challenge is to sustain critical, independent, intelligent eyes on the world. Despite the disruption of our mass media, the proliferation of imagery, and our selfie culture, documentary photographers are still committed and determined to bear witness. They still believe in what photographs can do, and so do I. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are delighted to be here as part of the closing plenary of the Skoll World Forum. And we're especially honored this year to have brought the first ever Skoll Sing for Hope piano that all of you created with us for the Oxford University campus. And it's a great first taste of the Sing for Hope mission of Art for All.
We just performed excerpts from 2 classic vocalises written over a century ago. A vocalise is a gift to a singer. It's a composition that allows the voice to stretch and expand, kind of like really intense yoga for the vocal cords. The vocalise I sang was written by Ravel, and it channels my Hispanic heritage, that Spanish scale that was born in the minarets of northern Africa, traveled up the Iberian Peninsula, fused with gypsy spirit, and became flamenco.
The vocalise I sang was written by composer Maurice Delage and channels my Southeast Asian heritage. Our 2 vocalises invoke different continents, but are connected by a common thread. At Sing for Hope, we believe that every human being has unlimited creative capacity and that we share a collective responsibility to unlock that potential. We really believe this is true for disenfranchised communities who stand to gain the most by activating creativity. We believe that the first step to creating positive change is imagining it, and there is no better tool to honing the imagination than the arts.
We believe, furthermore, and how incredible to say this at Oxford University, incubator of so many of the great Renaissance thinkers, we believe in converting STEM to STEAM. That is,
yeah.
Yes.
Yes, you may apply for
that. Inviting the arts into the equation of science, technology, engineering, and math. We believe in welcoming the arts to the table of social change, along with politics and economics. In our hyper-connected world, so many of us are more disconnected than ever. In particular, our most vulnerable communities, our at-risk youth, our elderly, our veterans. Art can be a change agent, a creative placemaker, a delivery system. And something as simple, even without a power cord, as simple as a contraption made of wood and string and brass can connect us and generate hope.
I think this is the greatest public art project ever.
Every day we look out, there's at least like a family of 4 or 5 people that are all playing. You could tell half of them have never played a piano before.
You know, as soon as someone sits down and plays, everyone stops and gathers around, and you have this sort of immediate, temporary moment of community.
It's called the Piano of Magical Merriment, and it's supposed to invoke a sense of merriment and magic.
I decided to do something that took the interactive element to another level. So I painted the entire piano with chalkboard paint and allowed people to come play, draw, write, do whatever they want with the piano.
I wanted to make mine like really playful so you could look at it and either laugh at it or feel really comfortable to go up and play it.
I have to come in the morning and open up the piano. I talk with some people who are around, encourage them to use the piano. Sometimes the parents want to shout at the kids and say, get away from there. I said, no, it's for them too, it's for the community.
So a lot of our young people have never really seen a real piano up front and center, so it's amazing and it's fun to sit down with them and really play and see that energy and excitement.
I don't think you would see these 2 guys talking to these ladies in strollers otherwise, unless one of them was playing an upright piano that was for some reason in the middle of a public park. It's an opportunity to kind of, I don't know, take the New York mask off, I guess, and just sort of let your guard down even just for a minute and communicate with someone that you might not otherwise have a vehicle to communicate with.
I wish I would have learned it, but I could still learn it if I put my mind to it.
When I listen to music, it brings a different attitude to my body, to my soul. You know what I mean? And it's a blessing for us to have this so that people like us can appreciate it because it's music and it helps you grow.
This year's Skoll theme is belief. And clearly, voice and belief are intertwined. For if you believe in someone, you give them voice.
As singers, our work begins and ends with breath. Vocalized breath is the first indicator of human life, as any newborn's cry will tell you. This primal utterance exists across nations and eras. It connects us all, and it's as simple as it is profound, the universal ah. This pre-verbal connected state is what we tap into when we share art.
And now, Skoll Tribe, we want to honor your voice. So we're going to do a little exercise with you that we call a tuning exercise. So if you would, please come to the edge of your seats. We're going to take a deep breath together. Don't get scared. All right. We're just going to breathe. So everybody take a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. One more time. Deep breath in and out. Great.
Now, there's already an incredible resonance in this room. I think we all feel it. We're just going to amplify it a little bit. So this half of the room, we're together. Our pianist, Jonathan, is going to give us a tone, and we're going to sing together on ah. Maestro? Ah. Gorgeous. Okay, let's do that again. Ah.
Very nice. Now this side of the room, we're going to give you a different pitch, Maestro. Ah. Great, one more time. Ah. Very nice.
Okay, now, social entrepreneurs, let's create harmony. Together. Again. Oh, one more time. It's too good.
It's too good. That was beautiful. Give yourselves a round of applause. Now you are all tuned. So go out into the world and spread your harmony.
We're just going to take a moment now and reset for our next artists, so please stay tuned.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the CEO of Water for People, Ned Breslin, and the Director of ESTAMOS, Feliciano dos Santos.
So welcome back to Oxford. You were here last year, and you told beautiful stories and sang beautiful music, and they didn't have enough of you, so they decided to bring your whole band back. Yes? How does it feel to be back?
I'm feeling good.
Yeah? You look good. Yeah?
I think so.
I think so too. So, on opening night here, you sang a song about Nyasa.
Yeah.
Tell us about Nyasa. What is Nyasa?
Well, nowadays, Nyasa is improved a lot of life. But a few years ago, was the poorest place in the world. Because Mozambique was on the list, the poorest country in the world,
yes.
you know? So you have to imagine Niassa what was. We still have challenges on water, sanitation, roads, many things. So if I do the list, maybe will be until my country.
Yes, I think we want to hear you before the entire list.
Yeah.
So Niassa is a part of Mozambique. It's in the north of Mozambique. It is the poorest province in Mozambique.
Yeah.
And you are a son of Niassa.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you started this amazing organization called ESTAMOS.
ESTAMOS, yes. We started there in 1992.
Yeah, what were you doing?
Well, at that time, we had a civil war between Renamo part, now it is a part in the government. So many people went out for the country, like Malawi, the neighbors country. When they finish the war, they come back, so they start a new life, but without, you know, like sanitation, houses, water. So we decided, the first thing we tried to do was to build a band, Masuk's band, because we say, all right, they don't have nothing, but they can have fun. So,
yeah.
And
they can sing.
So yeah, they can sing. So we start for the music first, and then we decide, all right, okay, they dance, but when they go back home, they don't have water for drink. So we start building the ESTAMOS organization to try to help the people, but also to help us, because even us, we didn't have nothing. It was a war time. It was very difficult. Yeah.
You've done amazing work. What is ESTAMOS doing today?
After 12 years or maybe more, we built latrines, we built boreholes, we help people build houses. But now we changed the program because we realized that the government now they have some resource. We have a boom of mineral resource, you know, and then now we are tracking public finance.
Yes.
We're monitoring the money, how the government use. It's a fight about that. We do social audit. And we want to make sure that each money the government receives, they use.
Yes, every penny.
Governance, we do that.
Every penny is used to make Mozambique and Niassa a better place.
Better place for living, yeah.
And you don't stop, do you?
No, I will not stop until my end of life, you know, so I will not stop. So, I mean, it's a challenge program because we have a lot of difficulty to have information. Last year, the government the parliament, they just approved a new law, access of information. So sometimes you know they approve that, they put on behind the table. So, but we fight about that, and then we try to do our best.
You're doing amazing work. Now, I'm going to rent a car.
Yep.
And I'm going to drive up to Lashinga on a brand new road. Is that correct?
No.
Oh, my Lord.
That road, I mean, I don't know if I will see that road. I don't know. I'm not sure. We have a new government. Now we had election last year. The new president is from the north, with Cabo Delgado, close to my province. He promised to build. It was in campaign time, so you know. When for 13 years they still promised the road, and they say no. You know, I'm neighbor and I know well how people suffering. So I will build. I remember during the campaign he went to some in my province, and he say I promise I will do that. And it was an old man. He said to him. He said to former president. He told him that, you know, President Chissano promised 10 years. You promised 10 years. Chissano was 20 years. And you are saying that these children can build the road because the new president is younger than the true former president. But he promised, I hope that he can do that. I don't know. They promised a lot of things because they want to win the election. So they won, but we still have another problem now. Then the other parties don't accept the results, so they want to like divide the country, say they have to be region, autonomy. So I don't know how we are going to handle, and is included my province. I don't know, but the road is still there, the same and worse now, because we have rains.
Yeah. I think you will continue to push not only for a road, but for the beautification and development of Niassa.
Yep.
And we need to hear your music. So what are you going to play for us tonight?
Well, tonight I will not play alone. I will play with the audience because it's the music. It's about washing hands.
Washing your hands, yes.
Yes.
We track all of you.
Yes, I will track, because what I will ask is each person have to, to do their hands like they have to imagine how they wash their hands. When I'm singing the song, when we are going to play, they have to do like this. And I will track what I'm doing with the public finance money, I will do here.
Yes. You have a strong eye on accountability.
Yes.
So we're watching all of you.
Yeah. So other songs is about, in our village, it's not only on the village, even on the cities, people, when they got married and the father leave the children, they abandon them, and when they grow, he come back. He need the children because they now work. So the mother say, no, I will not give you the child because it belongs to me. So the second song we are going to sing tonight.
And as you know, that's my favorite song of yours.
So, I know, yes.
Yeah, so thank you so much for doing that. So we're going to bring Masukush on right now, and they're going to get set up, yeah?
Yep.
So come on out, Masukush. I just really want to reiterate, ESTAMOS is actually one of the most amazing organizations I've ever been able to work with. They have radically changed the way that circumcision ceremonies happen, reducing dramatically HIV transmission. They have transformed lives through water, sanitation, agriculture, and they do it through this amazing musical beat that you guys will be absolutely inspired to listen to. So thank you all so much, and please welcome Masukush. Thanks, my friend.
Thank you. Go ahead. Thank you.
The wonderful Masukos, ladies and gentlemen. And preceding them, the inordinately wonderful Darren, Susan, Feliciano, Monica, Camille, Ned, and Ken. Thank you. So, the sun shone on the 12th Skoll World Forum. And we conclude our business this evening. Though, of course, the Skoll World Forum doesn't end. When we were younger and less mature, and I was less grey, the forum happened once a year in Oxford. Okay. As I got greyer and as we got more self-confident, and as we matured and it became more established, it's clear that this emotion, this thing that you do, carries on through the year, and it should persist through the year. It's a culture of mutual support, a repository of information, and a wellspring for your resilience. It's what I'm not allowed to call a vibe. Stay with us when you are not here. Thank you, sir. On Wednesday, I welcomed you home. It's been an extraordinary 3 days. Please come home next year. And I leave you with something positive and something new and emergent. Our belief has shone so brightly this week. We've created so much energy that there has been, and this is not a joke, there has been a serious fire in the Randolph across the street. Okay? Everyone is fine. I'm told that we are able to leave the building by the normal exits. Okay? But if you see smoke, if you hear alarms, don't worry. Okay? It's all entirely under control, and I'm told that none of us are at any risk and no one in that building is at any risk. Okay? I didn't want you to exit here and be alarmed. So,
are my underwear safe?
Well,
because I only have one left.
Well, actually, it's worse than that, because I'm told that your underwear might have been the problem in the first place. So the very last thing I'm going to say, I'm not going to talk about underwear anymore. I'm simply going to say one more Alice thing, okay? One more serious thing, because I believe this to be true of you. Let your imaginations be prodigious and your impossible beliefs come true. Travel safely. See you next year. Thank you.